Hayao Miyazaki is the most popular anime filmmaker and the co-founder of Studio Ghibli, a respected animation studio. Their latest movie was The Boy and the Heron. I'm making this video to recoup the lost money and time I spent because this movie was not good. Let me tell you why. The plot was so bad. The first half of the movie is just the characters chilling and doing nothing of true importance. The characters move to a new place, eat food, drink tea, go to sleep, go to school, and work, etc. This is a 2-hour movie, and it took nearly an hour for the plot to actually kick in, which is when they go to the fantasy world. Mahito is the main character, and he tries to hunt this fantastical gray heron and search for his stepmom, Natsuko, who wandered into the forest, and it leads him to the fantasy world. So he catches Gray, but then he stops searching for Natsuko and just messes around in the fantasy world. Before I explain how nonsensical all of this is, I need to dive into the characters. Mahito's mom died in the past, and his dad married his mom's sister, Natsuko. Natsuko is pregnant, and Mahito doesn't really like Natsuko. Mahito also has this grand uncle who got lost in the fantasy world. Gray has been bugging Mahito to get him to come to the fantasy world. Now, let's get into motivations. A plot is driven by character goals and motivations. Natsuko went into the fantasy world to give birth there. Why? We never know. Mahito went into the fantasy world to bring Natsuko back. The uncle is the ruler of the fantasy world, and he wanted to have Mahito be his successor. The heron, well, I don't know what his goal was. He called the uncle master and kept saying your presence is desired to Mahito. So you could assume that his goal was to bring Mahito to the uncle, but this is where stuff stops making sense. Gray brings Mahito into the fantasy world by lying and saying that his mother is still alive. He made a fake model of his mom, and Mahito got angry. What was the point of doing this if his goal was to bring Mahito to uncle? And when Mahito got mad, Gray threatened to kill him, but we're not done yet. The uncle appears and tells Gray to take Mahito to Natsuko. If he wanted Mahito to be his successor, why didn't he talk about it here before taking him to his stepmom? Well, at least one of the goals is being accomplished. Oh wait, it's not, because Mahito wakes up in some random place, gets pushed through a gate by birds, and is saved by Kiriko. Wasn't Gray supposed to take Mahito to Natsuko? What happened? What is happening? Then we have a whole subplot about Mahito and Kiriko living together in the Wara Wara, which never become relevant again. Then Gray shows up again and tries to take Mahito to Natsuko. The man-eating birds try to eat him, and Hime saves him. They finally go to meet Natsuko, who's here to give birth for some reason, but Natsuko suddenly hates Mahito. She had been only kind to him in the real world, but now she suddenly hates him. First, this development was not foreshadowed and was a sudden twist. Second, Natsuko is a grown woman telling her stepson she hates him. You could argue that Mahito's coldness started to annoy her, but not only is she an adult who should be able to handle things like this much better, but she knows she's his stepmom. As an adult, she should understand how hard it is to have your mother replaced. She should understand why he's cold, and she did, until she didn't. Other stuff happens and Uncle and Mahito finally meet. Uncle says he wants Mahito to become the new ruler of his world. That was a lot of information, so let me recap the issues. Mahito wants to save Natsuko, but when he ends up with Kiriko, he messes around with her instead of trying to continue finding his stepmom. Gray's motivations and actions don't make sense. If he wanted to link Uncle with Mahito, why did he antagonize the latter so much? Natsuko wanted to give birth in a fantasy world, but why? And why did she suddenly hate Mahito? Finally, Uncle wanted to bring Mahito to Natsuko. Why didn't he immediately take him there? Instead, he had the ground swallow him and teleport him to some random location. Uncle also wanted Mahito to be his successor, so why didn't he talk about that as soon as he met him? The mess of motivations and actions leads to such an illogical plot with illogical characters. The setting is also a mess. I understand that this is a soft fantasy world where the rules aren't completely clear, but it's a mess regardless. For some reason, the girl named Hime has fire powers. Then it's revealed that Hime is a younger version of Mahito's real mom. Did Mahito not know his mother's real name, or is this an alternate universe, so she has a different name? Also, the sailor Kiriko is like a younger version of the old woman Kiriko, so it seems like this is an alternate timeline and in the past. But then at the end of the movie, Hime says that she has to return to her timeline, even if it means she dies. She also called Mahito her son. So is this an alternate timeline or the same timeline? Who knows? And then the grand uncle. If he created this world, why did he create giant man-eating parakeets that almost ate his potential successor? Why did he create seagulls that are so deprived of food that they have to eat the Wara Wara, which are human souls before they're born? Oh yeah, Kiriko also said that the Wara Wara become humans in the real world. How does something in the fantasy world affect the real world? And the themes? I don't even know what they are. At the end, Grand Uncle asks Mahito to take over, but he says no and wants to return to the real world. I guess living in reality is better than living in fantasy is the theme. They didn't do a good job at establishing these themes. The topic just came up out of nowhere in the end. This movie was so bad, but it had good animation, right? There were so many minute details that were animated with care for no reason. They didn't add to the quality of the story. Then it hit me. The whole movie was just an excuse to animate different things. Animate a monster heron, bubbly creatures, alien old ladies, eating bread with jam, walking talking parakeets, fire magic, sailing, etc. Everything that happened in this movie just felt like an excuse to animate something different in masochistic detail. Story be damned. And you know what's the worst part about all of this? I've seen better animated movies with better stories from Japan. Look no further than Makoto Shinkai. Your Name and Weathering with You were movies that looked 10 times better than this and had phenomenal, emotionally moving stories. The characters, plots, themes, and settings made sense. I wasn't a big fan of Shinkai's latest film, Suzume, but even that was a significantly better story than whatever this Jackson Pollock story was. It also looked better and had better music. I would watch Suzume over Heron any day. I've never watched a Ghibli movie before, and this is exactly why. I expected some nonsensical story with little story quality and a high focus on good animation. Yet somehow, this was worse than what I expected. It took the issues I predicted and amplified them. I don't know if Miyazaki is washed, or if all of his movies are this bad, but don't waste your time or money on this one. Good animation is not enough to make a good film. A good film needs a good story above all else. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, and help me revolutionize the manga industry by buying my manga and spreading the word. All important links will be in the description.